Pod, the Sepsis, Disability, and Chronic Illness podcast that I started back in May. And I really love that you all are tuning in, and the feedback that I've been getting is great. And I want to continue to welcome everybody to the podcast. Today, we are continuing to recognize Sepsis Awareness Month, which is every September. And we're talking with sepsis survivors, medical experts, and also family members who have lost someone to sepsis. Today, I'm welcoming Clayton Anderson to the podcast. Some of you might be aware of Clayton's story, Krystal's story, after seeing it appear in all the major news outlets last March 2024, because Krystal Anderson was also a Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader. And the news, I remember seeing it appear in my news feed that a former Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader had died of sepsis-related complications just days after delivering her stillborn daughter, Charlotte Willow. And that was when I came to know Clayton, and I started to see him on social media and the things that he's been doing since then to honor Krystal and to make people aware of sepsis, especially maternal sepsis, and also the foundation that he has just started called the Shine with Joy Foundation in Krystal's honor. I'm going to let Clayton tell you a little bit about that also today, and a little bit about Krystal and what happened and how to know signs or symptoms of maternal sepsis and what is being done about it. The nonprofit Sepsis Alliance and Sepsis also announced the news last year. And like I said, that's how I came to know Clayton, and seeing the work that he's been doing, also with the other nonprofits and his own foundation. And he's really been working tirelessly. I'm going to let him talk about all of that today. So welcome everyone again to the podcast, and Clayton, welcome to you as well. Thank you for being here today. I've read so much about Krystal. It's been in national media, and the stories that you've told and the stories that you told about her on the Sepsis Alliance site and Sepsis's website. And to me, she sounded like she was a true force of nature. This woman was, into everything. She was amazing. And it seemed that people were just her treasure. And she loved everybody. Can you take us back a little bit and, tell us about Krystal, like how you all met, and the things she was passionate about?
Yeah. So I think, and this word comes up a lot, in life when we're talking about Krystal, but to me, she was the word joy, like personified. If joy was a person, that would have been Krystal. She was brilliant, fun, beautiful, caring. I like to say that she laughed very loud. She was not a quiet person. And she loved very big. And, a lot of people, like you said, heard about her story through the national media because she was a longtime cheerleader for the Chiefs. She was actually the longest tenured Chiefs cheerleader. But she really was a cheerleader for everybody she met. She was a cheerleader for anybody she met, came across, and she would make you a friend, whether you were ready for it or not. And then, she was going to cheer you on. She wanted the best for anybody, all of her people. I got lucky enough to meet her. We actually worked for the same company, and my team had just joined a new team, and she had just left that new team, the team that I joined, and the people on the team that had worked with her and now are working with me, they started telling her that I was interested in her, and they were telling me that she was interested in me. So it was a very rom-com movie plot. but it was the best setup ever, I guess. And asked her out for her birthday, and we went out to brunch for our first date, May 1st, 2016. And we talked about food. We're both big foodies, and football. And I was like, this is a brilliant, beautiful woman that wants to talk about food and football. Like, sign me up. Let's do this. So yeah, so that's how we met, and obviously it's how it started, and through everything that life throws at you, we just grew closer and closer and closer together. And yeah, it was a pretty awesome love story.
The photos, and I'm going to run some photos here on the podcast as we talk. So if people are watching on YouTube, they'll be able to see that Krystal, I mean, her photos themselves shine with joy. Everything about her facial features, and when she's taking photos with other people and the two of you as a couple, her spirit just leaps out at you from that photo. And what we see as a person that, yes, we all would have loved to know too. It would have been, oh my gosh, I got to talk to this lady. Look at that smile. Look at that face. She's just ready for anything, ready to take on the world. And so, yeah, so I do want our viewers to see some of the photos if you haven't already seen them in the news. Krystal was just amazing, an amazing person. And I also read that through her work, she was a software engineer, correct? And
Correct.
through her work, she developed a program was it to detect postpartum hemorrhage?
To calculate the
Calculate.
blood loss. So she was, we both worked for a healthcare IT company, and she actually has a patent. Her name's on the patent for that, but it was around digitizing postpartum blood loss. The old ways of doing it was basically weigh dry towels, and then you weigh blood-soaked towels, and that's how you do some math and figure out. And Krystal's patent was around digitizing that blood loss. So then you can determine not only a little more accurately how much blood was lost, but subsequently what is the risk associated with that amount of blood loss to the mom. So she was very proud of that. She worked in a lot of different areas of our company over the 18 years that she worked there, but that was the time that she was the most proud of what we were doing at our company. Is when she was directly contributing to maternal health improvements.
Incredible. And that program went global, correct?
Correct. Yeah. That functionality is used in hospitals around the world.
That's incredible. That is truly incredible. And when she was with the Chiefs, she was with them like in a part one. She worked for them and then retired, right? And then she went back. She tried to, right, and she wasn't having it,
Right.
So she went back, and it was 100 games that she cheered at.
Cheered at 100 games.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, and to add some perspective to that, that there's 50% of the games that are in the season are away games, and they're not cheering at those. So to cheer for 100 games, that is 10 games over the course of 10 seasons.
Yeah,
it's a decade of your life, and like you said, she was going to stop after I think it was year 6, and she set out a year and then said, yeah, I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself. So she decided to come back, which is not very common once you're retired, because it's what a lot of people don't also understand is it is not only a big time commitment. You're talking multiple practices a week that are multiple hours long. You have PR events, and then you actually have the game day, and the game day is a 12-hour event because you got to be there so early to practice and get on the field. You have the game, you have entertaining your fans, and then you have to go home afterwards, and it's a 12-hour day. And so it's not just a time commitment, but to cheer for 3 hours, to have multiple 3-4 hour practices every week is very physically, demanding as well. So for her to take a year off and then want to go back and do that from a time and a physical commitment standpoint was very impressive.
Yes, I was going to say it's physically demanding. I mean, it's a grueling schedule to keep up and to always, the time commitment, everything. And so she went back, and that was when, as I read, she really like excelled at leading the team, and she loved, and she was the glam girl. She was the one who, and wore, and the sequins, her outfits were
Mhm.
stunning. Oh my gosh.
Never
And
enough
everything.
sparkle for that woman.
Yes. I love it. I'm totally that she's just beautiful in so many ways, inside and out. And so here we have, she is very healthy. Um, Cheerleader, turned into her career as a software engineer, and she also taught yoga, right?
Yeah. So once she finally retired from cheering, she'd gone from, this time commitment, this physically demanding commitment, and she didn't know what to do with herself. And so she leaned into yoga, and both the physical, but also the spiritual, mental wellness aspect of yoga.
Mhm.
And she liked it so much that she said, I want to learn how to teach it. So she became certified, 200 hour and then 300 hour. She was 500 hours certified to teach yoga, and would teach yoga five classes a week. So, each is an hour long. And
Yeah.
then she would also practice herself. And so she was, and all while she was doing this, she was still coaching with the Chiefs cheerleaders. So she would be there every Sunday on the sideline in her corner, Chrissy's corner,
Yes.
and she would make sure that all the cheerleaders were where they needed to be when they needed to be, and looking out for her. And like you said, she kind of took on a little bit of that she took on that leadership role when she went back, after her initial retirement. But then she really took on kind of the motherly role, when she was coaching them.
Yep. And she loved doing the makeup.
Oh yeah, yes. Again, she would host whenever there was a new black cheerleader on the team. She
Yes.
would offer to give them like a makeup tutorial, like, hey, this is what game day glam looks
Hmm.
like for us. Let me help you out. Again, that motherly figure, wanting her girls to shine and be their best.
Exactly. So, she was so full of joy, full of
Yeah.
ambition, full of, everything, friendly, giving person, generous, wanting to help people out, and take on those roles. And then, and the two of you got married. What year was it?
Uh, we got engaged in October 2019.
Uh-huh.
Tried to start planning a wedding, then the pandemic happened, and
Yeah. Oh my
trying to
gosh.
plan
Yeah.
trying to plan a wedding during the pandemic was a mess. So you know, we were originally going to get married in um, November 2020,
Mhm.
and we ended up postponing that, which is good because we both had COVID
Oh no.
on our initial wedding date. So,
Oh
like,
no.
it was a really good thing we postponed, and we ended up postponing to July of 2021. So we got married July 31st, 2021.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that was interesting for a lot of weddings that were planned and then delayed during those times.
Yeah.
And um, Krystal had James. It would have been 2023, right?
2022. Yeah.
2022. Sorry. And then, um, and James was stillborn.
Correct. Yeah. And she was actually at a Chiefs game coaching on Sunday, November 27th, and she called me during the game, which is unheard of. She is a rule follower. And
Mm-hmm.
during the game, even I knew, like, don't even bother texting her. She's doing her
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
And so when she called me during the first quarter and said, coming home, uh, I knew something was wrong and grabbed the pink folder. And we went to the emergency room and, we couldn't find a heartbeat. And we found that we had lost him, and she delivered him at 6 p.m. on Sunday, November 27th, 2022, right there in the emergency room.
And was she okay? Like, does the doctors know what happened, or?
I think we know in hindsight, just because of what happened with Charlotte, that she probably had a shortened cervix and the amniotic sac ruptured, likely. We don't know for sure.
Right.
Um, but she had you're devastated. Here we thought that pregnancy was, other than a little bit of constipation, like it was pretty normal.
Yeah.
At least we thought it was. And then to see your son be born, for her to give birth to him and hold him, he's dead, but it's devastating. And she actually had a short bout with sepsis then, and so we were in the hospital for 3 days after she delivered. And I will say they make what are called a cuddle cot. It's
Yes.
kind of like a cooling cart. And so we actually got to spend a few days with James while Krystal was getting better. And you know, best, worst 3 days of your life when you get to spend time with your newborn, but he's already gone to heaven.
A time where, you're anticipating a delivery, and happy times turns into the worst sadness ever.
Yep.
And after that was in November 2022, and then afterwards, obviously, Krystal got pregnant again with Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. So Krystal had some fibroids, and we had after you lose one, you want to do everything you possibly can to make sure you don't have to feel that pain again, and that, your baby makes it alive. And so we had fibroids removed in February 2023. I didn't think those contributed, but again, you just want to, anything possible you can to be more successful. We were willing to do, and also included a lot of therapy. I will say, I think going to therapy together, our infant loss therapy together, it made our marriage incredibly strong. It gave us a bond that, I hope no one ever has to go to that. But going to it together and being able to be open and share and everything, and realize, like, this is your partner for life. They're going to be there through the worst thing possible. It was powerful. And so finally in August 2023, we got the green light to start trying again. And November 26th, 2023. So a day before James' first birthday. And I was down on the exercise bike, and she comes down with a big grin on her face, and I didn't know what was going on, but she pulled out the pregnancy test behind her back, and, almost fell off the bike. I was full with just joy and emotion that, she's pregnant again. And then, like, the next day, reality kind of sets in, and you're like, you have a sense of panic and paranoia. about all the things that could go wrong. You're holding your breath every time she was going to the bathroom to make sure there's no blood. And if they would have let us be seen every single day during our pregnancy, we would have signed up for it. Because the days we heard a heartbeat, Charlotte's heartbeat, were basically the only days that we would get sleep at night, because your mind is just going through all the things that can go wrong.
You're just trying to
Yeah.
get through each day. And
Every
I
day
know,
for 9 months. Yeah.
right. And women, of course, who are watching this and have been through miscarriages or anything, then then the pregnancy afterwards, it is like you're tiptoeing and walking on eggshells
Mm-hmm.
every
We
day.
wanted to put her in bubble wrap and
Yeah,
lock her in a castle far, far away, and nothing can hurt her, hurt Charlotte.
yeah,
And so
right.
we asked OB to be seen more often. We got an MFM doctor, a high risk maternal fetal medicine doctor,
Yeah,
and our plan, Selena's plan, was to see the MFM every 2 weeks and see the OB every 2 weeks and stagger them, so we would be seeing somebody every week.
right.
And we ended up just getting the normal once a month from the OB, and MFM did agree to see us every 2 weeks. They wouldn't start until week 14. And then at week 16, a week 16 appointment, they noticed that Krystal's cervix was shortening, which is likely what happened with James. That's when we figured out it's likely what happened with James. But they recommended a cerclage, which is a stitch in the cervix to make sure that you can make it to a viable age of pregnancy. And then after we got the cerclage in week 16, we literally went straight from our week 16 appointment into the operating room that day. We got the cerclage, and then they told us that we didn't need to be seen at week 18, that they would just see us again at week 20, which, again, you never want your appointments canceled, especially after a loss, your first pregnancy after a loss. Then week 20 came, and we heard Charlotte's heartbeat, and she was doing amazing. She was like 85th percentile, like big girl. And then they told us that the cerclage had failed. And Krystal was hourglassing, which is when the amniotic sac starts coming through the cervix. And told us that there wasn't anything they could do at that point, and that we should go home and try to get to week 22, in which case they would admit us to a different hospital that can treat or can care for super preemies. Because they were saying, like, if you can get to week 22, it's probably not going to make it too much past that.
I'm a little surprised that they didn't hospitalize her right then and there, like that they sent her home.
We thought that was weird too. We had this, Krystal was dairy free. She had a dairy allergy, and there was a bakery, which, if you know anything about baking, it is very hard to do dairy free pastries. And so and it was always, it's directly between where we lived and the hospital. And so we would always go have our morning appointment, stop and, get a treat for mom on the way home.
Yeah.
And that day when they sent us home, like, we didn't even want to stop. We're like, this doesn't feel right. This feels off. Didn't want to be bad patients. They're the experts. We'll trust them. So we were not as vocal as we should have been. and sent us home. And 4 days later, March 16th, Krystal was like, something's off. Doesn't feel right. You should go in. And we went into the emergency room and they checked Charlotte first, and her heartbeat was just cruising right at 158 beats per minute. Like, again,
Mm-hmm.
she was just cruising right along. That was at
Yeah.
5:30 that night. But they did detect what they thought was amniotic fluid in Krystal's
Yeah.
vagina, and so they're like, we're gonna hold you tonight and tomorrow until MFM can come back and see you on Monday.
Hmm.
And so we're like, okay, this feels more right that you're keeping us this time.
At least they kept her that time.
Yeah, yeah. It could have gone. I mean, it went bad, but it could have gone bad quicker, I guess. And because at 8 o'clock that night, they went to go check Charlotte's heartbeat. We had lost her. So, somewhere in those 2.5 hours, she went to go be with her brother. And
I I can't imagine, Clayton. I can't. No one can. No one can know what the two of you were feeling then. And I
yeah,
could only imagine it was
devastated.
like hell.
You thought you're doing everything right, everything that you can possibly do, and yet it still happened again.
Right.
We had two little ones up in heaven then, and somehow you think, like, how can it get any worse? And then, yeah, it does. Yeah.
Exactly.
I was in the bed, we're holding each other and crying, and been on, they put her on a preventative antibiotic when they detected the fluid, and she spiked. Going back and reviewing her medical record, she spiked a fever shortly before midnight, and then her blood pressure dropped pretty significantly around 1 in the morning. Later on that night, she started complaining of seeing spots and being cold, which, for those that are tuning into this podcast, they know what that means. When you start lining
Right.
all three of those things up,
All the
um,
signs were happening.
all of them,
Were the
yeah,
doctors doing anything? Like,
they were. By the time they realized it, they did start. Once they thought they might know what's going on, they ordered uh, the labs, and the labs confirmed it. Unfortunately, that was at like 6 in the morning, and so I mean, you can do the math. First signs
yeah,
are before midnight. Basically, sign
right.
after sign after sign. By 2:30 in the morning, we're checking 4 of the boxes, and protocols for sepsis weren't started until it was 7:06 a.m. the next morning.
Every hour count, every minute counts.
Yep.
The moment the symptoms appear. And yet, so she was there 7 hours. It sounds like checking all those boxes. And when the doctors finally clued in, was there anything that they were even able to try? Or,
So at this point, Charlotte was still in Krystal's womb, and so they had to get Charlotte out because they thought, baby girl might be the source of the infection,
yeah,
and so we had to get Charlotte out. So I had, went to the OR with Krystal, where she was going to have a C-section, get Charlotte out, and gave her a kiss and told her I'd be right here waiting for her when she got out. And when she got out of surgery, she went straight up to the ICU, and she had total lung, liver, and kidney failure, and basically was medically induced coma.
And pregnant women, when you're pregnant, your immune system is on the down low anyway, so that it doesn't reject the baby. So I really think, I mean, I'm not an MD, but I've had children, and I think it kind of makes sense that that's one of the reasons pregnant women are more vulnerable to develop an infection in the first place, or for sepsis to take over the way it did, like with Krystal. Your defenses are down.
Yeah. This was we had talked about her physical fitness earlier. She was the healthiest person either side of her families. She, on Peloton, which is what we had in our basement that I almost fell off of. It tracks how many minutes you work out. And up until that week 20, she was averaging 45 minutes a day. Like, this is an incredibly healthy woman. She watched what she ate, no dairy, no red meats, like, she was no deli meat. We had the pregnancy diet menu was in our house, and we were following it to a T. Taking her prenatal vitamins, you name it. And I mean, sepsis doesn't care. Once it gets going, and if you don't catch it early, this, it is literally a matter of life and death.
There's no time. It's like once it gets rolling, it's like you hit the first domino, and the rest of it's just going to go. There's absolutely no time. And the fact that Krystal was young, she was fit. And as you said, she took impeccably good care of herself, ate well. And the thing where I think we have trouble, having people understand sepsis, or to even spreading the awareness, is some people will have a belief that sepsis just affects older people, that it doesn't affect young people. And the thing that whenever I do a sepsis talk, one of the statistics I always hit them with is it's the second leading cause of maternal mortality. And I'm looking at my audience, and Clayton, I can honest to God just see half their jaws are just hitting the ground. And they're like, what? I can't believe, yes, young, healthy mothers, and Black mothers more than twice as likely than a white mother to have negative outcomes or to die of sepsis should she develop sepsis. And that's something that we all know, those of us who are advocating for sepsis. I see it all the time, and I see it quoted, I see it on all the websites. And do we know if anything's being done really about that? Black maternal mortality has been an issue for decades, since probably the beginning of time, here in the US at least. And is anyone doing anything, researching, helping, making this change already?
I think, where we live in this day and age in this country, whenever you start bringing race into it, people get uncomfortable. But the numbers, let's keep tracking them, because I do fear that we're not going to track them. Right. But the numbers don't lie. The fact that, a white woman without a high school diploma in Appalachia still has a lower maternal mortality rate than Black college educated women. It just goes to show you that while I don't think, I do think money and education and access play a role into successful pregnancies, there's clearly something else going on there too. And I don't, and there are certain things that are being done that are good. And I don't want to just come off that they're not, right? Like access to doulas, midwives, like simple things like giving pregnant women blood pressure cuffs for free and teaching them how to use that. that is a $30 expense
Yeah.
that it literally will pay for itself. It is a no-brainer. I don't know why it's not being done more often. I know there are some places that are doing it, but this should be universal.
Every
Come in.
pregnant woman should get one.
Yeah. Every pregnant woman should get a blood pressure cuff and a 5-minute tutorial on how to use it. And oh, by the way, if your upper number gets to here or your lower number gets to here, you come in.
Absolutely.
And that would do wonders.
Well, and
But
that's a great point, because blood pressure, it's easy to learn to take your
yeah,
own blood pressure, and it's easy. You read the numbers and you can't tell. And pregnant women have so many things going on. There's so many things happening to your body, and you can't tell if you have high blood pressure. And when a pregnant woman's blood pressure is skyrocketing, that's deadly.
by the time you have a headache or starting to feel lightheaded, you should have caught it earlier. And by simply just checking blood pressure 2-3 times a day, each time you sit down for a meal,
Mhm.
like, and then, oh, by the way, like, you'll start to see where your kind of normal levels are at. And if it spikes too high, spikes too low, there's clearly something going on. And
Yes.
things like that. And I know there are some places that are doing that. And so kudos, keep doing it. That's awesome.
Yes.
There
Absolutely.
are additional things that we should be doing as well. And I kind of get on a soapbox here, obviously, because
Feel free.
what
Yeah.
happened with my wife, but like,
Right.
we have text lines, it's suicide prevention awareness month right now too. There's 988 suicide text line. Why don't we have a doula or a midwife free text line that just says, hey, is this normal?
Right.
That's literally, you'd love to be able to call your OB
Hmm.
24 hours a day. That ain't the reality we live in.
Right.
But that is what a doula is for, is to
Hmm.
literally help you through your pregnancy. Somebody you can text at 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock at night and be like, yeah, I'm feeling this. Is it normal?
Right.
And not everybody can afford a doula, which is another layer. Doulas,
Yes.
midwifery. And not everybody has what I call a medical auntie, somebody who is in the field, speaks the language.
Hmm.
But even having like a free text line like that, it just says, hey, is this normal? Like, that is a low cost, very easy way to say, no, mom, that doesn't seem normal. You should go in. Or
Right.
that's totally normal. Like, you're doing everything right. Thanks for texting. But, and hopefully this calms your nerves.
Yes.
And so those are simple, cost effective. There are investments that can be made. Like I said, the doulas, the midwives, and telehealth.
Mhm.
Fortunately, we are seeing what I consider to be an attack on rural healthcare
Oh, yes.
lately.
Hospitals closing, and yes, which is going to
And
take access away from all these mothers living in these areas.
yeah, and just go look at the numbers. The mortality rate, the further you get away
Yeah.
from city centers, doesn't get better. So
Right.
telehealth needs to be available. Medicaid, we cannot be cutting Medicaid. 41% of all births in this country are covered by Medicaid.
Right.
If we make cuts to Medicaid, I can tell you that our mortality and morbidity rates are not going to get better.
Oh. And the stereotype that Medicaid itself has with it, I know, I mean, my children were raised on Medicaid, and most people who are on Medicaid work. Most people are working, and working very, very hard at low wages, enough, and they're very low when you qualify for Medicaid. So we have to dispel this notion that Medicaid is a giveaway
Yeah.
to people that some people believe don't deserve it because they sit around and watch TV all day and they're not working.
Yeah. We hear a lot about being pro-family these days.
Yeah,
Cutting cutting Medicaid when it covers 41% of all all U.S. births and 60%, more than 60% of Black mothers' births,
right,
when we know that Black mothers have the worst mortality and morbidity rates. What do you think's going to happen? You know,
right.
I have a science and a business background, but somebody without that background can easily put one and one together and see, well, the rates are going to get worse. And then,
More women
there's
are
also
going to die. Yeah.
yeah. And then you have the other area that is uncomfortable for people to talk about is paid family leave. You know, a
And we're
lot of
one of the
medical
only
complications.
countries without that. We're
Yeah.
one of the only countries that don't have it.
And we are the worst country when it comes to maternal outcomes from all
Yes.
first world countries. And it's not close. Like,
Hmm.
here's everybody else, and we are way down here. It is a significant jump, us to the next one.
Yes.
So, cutting Medicaid, not having paid family leave, complications happen after 6 weeks. They do.
Yes.
And without without extended paid family leave, like, what do we think is going to happen? They're not going to
Right.
get better.
No, there was a time during, I think it was during the 90s, where they were trying what we called drive-through deliveries, where you would just go, they'd admit the mother and she would have the baby and be discharged like within 12 to 24 hours. It was crazy. It was something that I think was also being done like through the health insurance companies. They're like, well, but that wasn't giving enough time for that child to really be assessed, for the mother to be assessed. If there's always going to be problems, that they're going to crop up in the postpartum, you know, age and in the postpartum weeks after you have that baby. So, maternal sepsis involves the time period, of course, before you have the baby, when you have the baby, and after you have the baby. And we really have to start screaming it from the rooftops that it's a big problem and it's unacceptable in a country as modern as the US, as industrialized as we are. They call us, the industrialized countries or whatever, more advanced society. We shouldn't have this happening. We just
Right.
shouldn't.
Yeah, we're talking about putting AI in hospitals and everything like that, and then there's some simple things, whether it's policy, blood pressure cuffs. The other one that is, I don't want to say free because there's some people that would disagree with that, but
Mhm.
there are there's a cultural aspect that we have to be willing to admit and address, and it's bias training. It's listening to, believing mothers when they say something feels wrong. Like, Krystal was right that Saturday. She's like, something's off. We need to go in. She was right. Um,
Yes.
and mental health is the other aspect. That is a significant aspect. And when it comes to postpartum depression,
Right.
mental health needs to be a standard of care in both prenatal and postpartum visits. And there can't be a stigma around it. We got to do better than that.
There's a lot of stigmas I think we have to take down. And we have to start having these, as you said, these conversations, as difficult as they may be. I mean, isn't it about time in 2025 that we can sit down at a table and put it out there and say, and these things, I mean, there are people who are trying to do that, who are trying to do just that. There are organizations and everything that are, champions of this cause saying we have to have these conversations. And there are a lot of things that we have to learn about culturally appropriate care, listening to the women, believing their pain, and believing that this lady knows something is wrong. We need to pay attention to this.
Yeah. I mean, every layer matters. The equipment that we send home, the education that we are giving mothers when they first find out they're pregnant, or even before they're pregnant, if we know that that's, what they're trying for.
Yeah.
culture inside the hospital, policies that govern these healthcare like systems. Like there is something at every level that we could do that would be
Mhm.
better for all moms and all babies. Like
Right.
if we really want to be pro family in this country, we got to look at every single level. We can't just say we want that baby born.
You took the
That
words
doesn't
right
work.
out of my mouth. If you're going to say we're pro family, you got to live up to that. And you
Yeah.
got to make sure that there are policies and everything. And I know, you've done some work with End Sepsis. I think you were in DC with them last year because they have the Sepsis Act, the legislation that was also recently reintroduced. I had Kieran on with me a couple of episodes ago as well. And we talked about that and what, it could do nationally to save lives. So it's
Mhm.
important to, help the nonprofits, help the organizations, help the legislators. Let your legislators know that this is a concern for you. Maternal mortality should not be what it is here in the US. And we have to let the legislators know that this is a problem and we'd like to know what their thoughts are and what they plan to do about it. Along with, of course, everything else out there. But this has been like an issue. I think it's been kicked around and kicked to the curb a lot. I've heard about maternal mortality for decades
It's uncomfortable for people to realize that, a lot of people want to say we're the best country in the world. Not if you're pregnant, we're not.
now.
And
Right,
especially not if you're black or brown and pregnant.
right.
And that is an uncomfortable reality that people don't like to address, but it is the reality.
And again, it's not going to get better until we actually start talking about it. And that's one of the things that I will help you push for that and push however I can. I have no idea how we can do it, but there's got to be a way. And as far as I know that you started the Shine with Joy Foundation, which
Yes.
is now that's also has the STEM component with Krystal being software
Yep.
engineer and the need to, rise and recognize that there's so much potential out there in these young women that you are trying to help through the foundation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that got started and how it's going now? Because it's relatively new still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much, very, very new. You and I have this joke that we're building the plane and it is already in midair. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's this podcast for me, and that's Shine with Joy for you. But I mean, I've seen the posts, I've seen the website. And again, everybody, the link will be here in the description box. It's amazing what you've done in such a short period of time.
yeah, it really started because I didn't want her name to stop being said or for her legacy to be the tragedy of, her death and her being up in heaven with James and Charlotte. And while we can never separate Krystal from how she died, and nor do I think we should, again, we have to talk about this stuff or it's not going to get better. But her story is so much more than how she left this earth and went to heaven. She had an amazing impact down here on earth, and she was so passionate about a number of things. When I went to start putting this idea together, narrowing it down to, you want to solve all the world's problems. That's not a reality. And so I'm like, okay, I got to narrow scope a little bit on what was she most passionate about. I still could only narrow it down to four things. And so we actually have four pillars. STEM education for Black women. Krystal did not like the fact as a software engineer that she was often the only person in the room who looked like she did. Not just from a female standpoint, but particularly from the Black female standpoint. And the opportunities to have a patent, make lasting change, but also to change her own life. And all these bookshelves behind me used to be full of all of her shoes. That, Krystal had a good job, and she loved buying shoes. So, like, um, a career in STEM fields can do a lot for you, in addition to doing a lot in the world. And Krystal wanted to make sure that other Black girls, other Black women knew that. So that's one of our pillars. Our second pillar is maternal health improvements. And again, I don't need to go through the numbers again. We're last. And it does. Of all the first world countries, all industrialized nations, we can make some improvements.
Definitely.
Yoga and wellness. And obviously that was a big part of Krystal's life later in it. And it's surprisingly expensive to get those certifications. And she wanted yoga and wellness to be more accessible to people. So that's a third pillar. And our last one is just bringing joy to people. She wanted good things to happen to her people, to her community. And if there are people that are out there doing that, she wanted to support them. And so SHINE is actually an acronym, SHINE and Shine with Joy. And it's STEM education, improvements to maternal health, inspiring joy, and nurture and wellness around yoga certification. And the E is empowering others, because what we do every year is we give out a scholarship into each one of those pillars to hopefully help somebody else continue down those paths of creating positive change in each of those areas. And in the spirit of Krystal, we want to do everything that we can in this foundation with joy, because that's the way she would have done it.
Exactly. Oh, you know it.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt. And again, listeners and viewers, read the articles, read the Kansas City Chiefs website where her friends talk about her, and you just will feel like, gosh, this is someone who was truly everybody's friend.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this foundation is spot on 100% with everything that she cared about. And now you're carrying that for her.
Yeah. We're doing our best. It was pretty powerful just this past month. We gave out our first scholarships. So we gave out our Krystal Anderson Legacy Awards. And we actually, at our gala that we had, and we were able to also honor another mother here in Kansas City who has had her own battle with maternal sepsis. And
That was Bree, right?
yeah, Bree.
Yeah. She's
What
amazing.
she is
Gosh.
amazing. She is so resilient and so courageous in her fight. For those that don't know, she lost all 4 limbs after having maternal sepsis. And her boy, Bo, did make it, and Bree's out here being the best mom possible to him. And she really exuberates the what it means to be a star. And so we gave her Krystal Anderson Star Award. So it was an incredibly powerful and emotional night, and it really encompassed everything that Krystal was.
Yes, she keeps chugging. She never gives up. And yeah, I did see again the post on social media. Beautiful, beautiful night for everybody. And you're doing what you can with what you were given. No
Yeah.
one asks for your situation. Nobody.
And I don't want anybody to go through it. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't want it on my worst enemy. But I think making sure that Krystal's legacy of joy keeps going and turning my pain into purpose is It's the spirit behind it.
Were there any other resources or anything for someone who's listening, who's lost children during childbirth, lost their spouse? Is there anything in particular that is helping?
Um, grief is hard. And actually, it's funny, you can see the book in the background, Grief is Love.
With
It's
nowhere to go.
it was a refreshing the book and talking to people who have gone through what I call intimate grief. And that's who you got to find. And hopefully, if they hear your story, they'll find you. Because a lot of people, everybody's gone through grief. And it's different for everybody. And it's a roller coaster. You're going to have your okay days. You're going to have your not okay days. Sometimes you can see them coming on the milestone dates. And other times you're watching a TV show and something happens and there goes your day. It just tanks it. And I was lucky that Krystal and I both have very loving families. They don't live close, but they still show their love. And they always have, and they always will. And so being able to lean on them. We do have an incredible network of friends here locally. And they're like non-blood family, I guess is what I would call them, who check in and stop by and just make sure you're doing all right. Some of them don't know what to say. That's okay. And just being there is good. I had our dogs, honestly, and I knew that
For
Krystal would
fur
be there.
babies.
Yes, our fur babies. For those that don't know, Krystal was not a dog person until I was in the
Really?
picture. Because I had a boy that was non-negotiable. We were a package deal, and that became Krystal's first fur baby. She called Sprocket. He was her heart, and she became such a dog person that we actually ended up getting a second dog, and she called Lily her joy.
Oh,
And I knew she would be very disappointed in me if those boys weren't well taken care of and spoiled. So at the same time, they were caring for me more than I was caring for them.
yeah.
And weirdly enough, the internet, like people that reach out to you on the internet, usually, at least in my case, they were reaching out with the best of intention. That's how we got connected.
Yeah.
And the internet's got a lot of flaws,
Yes.
but it's there are also communities out there who have gone through similar things. Again, everyone's grief is completely unique, but there is something to be said about somebody who may not know exactly what you're feeling, but they get it. They understand the intimate grief, and they know when to listen versus when to speak. And when to speak, they know what to say and what not to say. Obviously, I also see it like a professional therapist, and there's no stigma here. It's
Right.
very helpful. It's not easy to find one that works for you. I wasn't ready for that. It's a little bit like dating, but once you have one, I'm going to see her next week again, just to check in.
You have to find the right one that understands and gets you. And I think, like, especially with child loss, and also on top of that, losing your spouse, that is a grief like no other that really takes an exceptional person. And people should not get discouraged looking for that therapist. You may have to try a few. Like you said, it's like dating. You might have to, or trying on shoes. You got to find the right fit. And for people, I think, especially when people have lost children, a lot of people don't know how to talk to that, talk to us, talk to people. They will go silent, and and it's mostly because they're afraid, I think. I lost my oldest daughter, but talking to you, Clayton, is a whole different ball of wax. I mean, it can make a person, it's like you're thinking, oh my God, I want to say the right thing. And sometimes you don't have to worry about saying the right thing. Let the person know that you know they're in pain
Yeah.
and you know that they suffered a loss. And as you said, the best thing is to know when to listen and
Yeah.
just be quiet and just be with the person and let them know, I know you're hurting and I know you're in pain, and let them talk, I think is something good, but don't ignore it. Like, don't tippy toe around it and be afraid to say anything.
Yeah. That's their family. It's my wife, that's my kids.
Yeah.
Ignoring it like nothing happened. You're knowing that I've fundamentally been rewired. Um, and I still talk about them. I love hearing their names. I love hearing their names.
Right.
And I know that I'm not going to bring it up at a cocktail party because, I know not a lot of people are going to feel comfortable about it. But
Yeah.
if you ask me, hey, have you gone out to the cemetery recently to see them? And I'm going to be like, yeah, absolutely. Go out there every Sunday morning and spend my time with them. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
It's,
Sometimes the cemetery could be a nice place to just go and
yeah,
be.
I get my time with my squad. So,
Right. Right. Um, Clayton, what would you like our audience to, take away from this conversation? And I want to remind you all, I'd like to have you back again next year, especially during our audience should be aware that Black Maternal Health Week is in April, and Maternal Sepsis Week comes right after that in May. And, so these are awareness campaigns that we're doing. Of course, we want maternal health care, as we were discussing, and safe deliveries for all mothers is a concern, and we need to pay attention to it 365 days a year. But during those particular weeks, I would love to have you back, because this is
absolutely.
not an issue that we need to drop. We need to keep hitting it all the time and make people aware. And so in saying all that, yeah, is there something you'd like our audience to remember, something you would like to leave them with?
Yeah, a few things. I always say, unfortunately, I learned some of these the hard way. Um, you can never over self-advocate. And I know self-advocacy can be hard. If that's the case, you got to find that medical auntie, that person that speaks the language, whether it is a doula, whether it actually is your aunt, whether it's your neighbor, best friend, sorority sister, doesn't matter. You got to find somebody that speaks the language that can help you advocate. A simple one that I like to say is literally bring a physical list of questions when you are seen. You try to remember it, keep it on your phone. You might not get the time, but if you have a physical list, a doctor or a nurse or the MA is going to ask, what's that? Now you have a chance to ask your questions. And then, the one that we both share is ask, could it be sepsis? Right? You start seeing things like a fever, blood pressure, chills, spots, clammy, weak, and ask, hey, could it be sepsis? Even if just to trigger them, well, best case scenario, they say, no, we've already ruled it out. Awesome. Good. At least we checked. But if you're late, they say, no, but we're going to do that. Thanks for the reminder. You might have just saved your person's life just by asking that simple question.
Exactly. Always remember, ask, could it be sepsis? Or have you ruled out sepsis? And right. Well, Clayton, thank you. Again, I knew, and as I told you, I knew this was not going to be it will never be an easy conversation, ever.
And I will say, I talked about the internet and how you find communities. If anybody going through something, seeing this, doesn't have somebody to talk to, please reach out. Again, everyone's grief is different, but I do get it. I get what you're going through, and I'll listen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Clayton, for sharing Krystal with us this hour and the babies. And I'm always there for you too, because I don't exactly understand everything you've gone through. But I think we can just help each other the most just by being there for each other. So thank you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, and thank you for saying their names. Love hearing them.
Yes. Charlotte, James, and Krystal. Always and forever. Thank you, Clayton, and thank you, audience, for tuning in for another episode of the 120 Pod. We appreciate you being here.